Sarah. Nice to meet you. Hi, I'm Sarah. Pleasure. Hi, I'm Sarah.
Mateo. Pleasure to meet you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah, and I'm joined today by Aaron, Mateo, and Amanda, and we are Authors and Talkers Consulting. Amanda and Aaron were our wonderful writers who wrote our research paper, and Mateo and I will be presenting our final presentation for you on how we believe ecotech can effectively and efficiently move into the future. So to begin, we're going to look over a brief analysis. In the case, we were asked to analyze 4 different sectors of the growing economy here in Quebec. So to begin, we can look at the entrepreneurial area within Quebec. We analyzed different areas, and there are 3 I would like to highlight. The first of which being funding. Funding has been a major concern for entrepreneurs here because it's an always ever question of if and when they can receive funding. Next of which is the tax and regulation. As pointed out in many areas, we see that there's the con of the Canadian government being a negative push for them to continuously receive that support that they need in order to grow their business. And then last of which is this combination of the culture and coordinated support. One thing that entrepreneurs point out is that there's not necessarily end users here who are interested in buying their product, and they're continuously seeking support and a market to sell their product in. All of this is important when looking at the entrepreneurial market because without them, there's not a way to grow this market. And we need to ensure that entrepreneurs are able to grow in this clean tech market. So then when looking at the clean tech market and the economic sector, we first looked at global investments. Internationally, we can see that there's a trend towards governments investing in this clean tech, and more governments are pushing towards this area. When looking at Canada specifically, though, we see a decline in retained earnings for those investing in clean tech. Now this creates an important or interesting situation, though, because there are less and less Canadians applying for patents within this industry. So now we have to ask the question of what is stopping this, and is it that government support or the funding, and how can we overcome this issue? And then last we looked at Quebec itself, and we saw that there are a lot of organizations present here. First of which being the 1,000 organizations who are active in the clean tech area. However, we see that 70% of these do have that international market, and they are looking for end users outside of the United States, which poses the question for ecotech of how we can ensure that we are helping those within Quebec stay in Quebec, but also grow their business to ensure that they can find those end users that they are seeking for in order to purchase their products and continue to grow that entrepreneur and those SMEs that they are working in. And next we looked at specifically ecotech's capacity within this market. We know that currently there are 5 full-time employees with 1 consultant, which means that this is a small company who's looking for a way to grow. They currently have 150 members active in their organization. However, as I just said, there are over 1,000 associations who work in SMEs or who work in clean tech within Quebec, which means there are 1,000 different new members that we could have active in our organization. However, we don't necessarily have the capacity to take that on at this moment. But then it's important to look at the clean tech cluster that we work in. As you can see from behind me, we can see that ecotech makes up that red dot, and they're at the center of this clean tech cluster within Quebec. And you can see that they serve as the broker between the developers and the users and the end users, and they are active in each of these different processes and stages. They work with those direct contacts with the government, who are the orange dots, and the other associations who are pink. But then they also have those university and business connections on the outside. And we want to ensure that ecotech is working with them as effectively as possible in order to enhance this cluster, to enhance it on that international scale, ultimately putting Quebec at the center of the clean tech cluster in the world. And so we also analyzed, finally, the international business aspect, as we were asked to why companies are looking elsewhere and what their main drivers for looking at markets outside of Quebec were. The first of which is that there are potential host markets. People are being asked to go there in order to find people to be end users. Also, they're looking for an external request. And as you can see, there are just different ways that companies are seeking to go outside at this international business area. And so ultimately, after this analysis, we had 4 main questions that we were asked, ranging from entrepreneurship down to international business. How do we ensure that Ecotech can have an efficient cluster, but also how can we ensure that they're helping their members and helping grow their cluster on different scales? This led to our 2-pronged solution of enhance and expand, as we work to ensure that Ecotech can effectively maintain its cluster, grow in its connections, but help find their members in order to help their members continue growing on that international scale. So to begin, I'm going to talk about the enhanced part of our strategy. And so first, again, let's look at where Ecotech falls on this clean tech cluster. As you can see, they're a supporter within the developer region, which means that they're the ones who support these developers in finding businesses, building connections, and ultimately that's where Ecotech's core competency lies, is in building these connections and making this drive and providing the resources needed for these developers to find those end users and find those possibilities. And so that's important to note when we look at our first situation of how to ensure that they can maintain strong connections within their members and within their cluster. And so Ecotech needs to enhance its connection with its members in order to strengthen its overall presence within its cluster. And so we recommend that Ecotech implement a customer relation management model. Now, this model will be important in order to effectively and efficiently work with our customer, or to work with its members, in order for them to receive the most benefit out of our services. And so what this looks like is a simple 4-part process of identify, differentiate, interact, and customize. Through these 4 parts, you'll be able to see different customers and what they need in order to effectively customize a product for them and effectively interact with them and provide them the best connection, best resource, and best information for them to succeed in this clean tech cluster. Ultimately, again, working towards that common goal of building up this clean tech cluster presence for all of Quebec. And so what this looks like is a model like this. And while this can be a bit overwhelming, don't worry, I'm going to go over an example briefly. But you can see that we look to identify, differentiate, interact, and customize. And how this will work is that we are ensuring the spread of knowledge throughout different areas, so when we get down to that customized endpoint, we are able to effectively see the interests and needs of our members in order to properly provide them the information that they need in order to expand. As we know that there's currently just an Excel sheet of our members database, we want to make sure that we are up to date and well aware of what their needs are on a more effective system. So how this would look is that we would first identify our customers. So let's say we have a new entrepreneur and we have a clean tech SME. Now these come in with they're in different stages of the startup process. They're growing in different areas, and we want to make sure that they receive what they need in order to become an effective clean tech cluster member. And so we differentiate them based on their values and needs. So here you can see that the SME has a high value because they've already established returns. As a growing business and enterprise, they have a member base and they're just looking for different things. So they have this high value that they can add to our membership. But then we also have the entrepreneur who has a high need because they're seeking more connections and more development, and they have different things that they're looking for. So then what we do is we interact with them differently. So whether that's weekly check-ins with our SME to ensure that they're receiving everything they need, or that's the entrepreneur using the website in order to effectively reach out to the different networks and different connections that they need to find funding, to find a buyer, to find whatever it is that they're looking for to build up their process. And then ultimately, we customize what we provide for them. So the Clean Tech SME joins the regulatory framework and taxation task force in order to effectively communicate that what it's looking for is this new government regulation to grow its business past the SME stage into a larger clean tech enterprise. While the entrepreneur is able to meet international buyers through our member base and through our networking in order to ensure that they're able to find the end users to grow their entrepreneurship startup into an SME and continue moving forward from there. So this customer relationship management software is important in creating Ecotech a stronger relationship with its members in order to effectively communicate with them. However, now that we have this new way, a new, better system of knowing what our members need, we need a new way to interact with them. So how we currently interact with our members is twofold, through emails and through the website. and you can see the current communication efforts behind me. We have weekly personal emails that we send out to our members. We have bi-monthly newsletters, and we have yearly surveys and just different things that we mail out. But we also have our website that provides the news stories, the blogs, and the videos, and everything else that's available there. However, we believe that there's an effective way for Ecotech to communicate efficiently and effectively with our members. And that's the creation of a dashboard. And as you can see behind me, this dashboard provides our members with a new opportunity to see different things. And while this might be an online platform that you might be thinking it's too expensive or something like that, this is a great opportunity for Ecotech because this is something that people are investing in now for startups. So nonprofits and startups are moving towards this dashboard model because it ensures them success on an online platform in an efficient way. So different areas that you can see behind me include a calendar of upcoming events. We can tell them when our task forces are meeting, when our upcoming events are going to be, and different things like that. We also can show them upcoming clean tech trends and different things like that we already show them through our monthly emails, but now we can put it on this dashboard. Along with that, it also shows just different product opportunities. One of our advisors told us that Ecotech is known to send out product information about entrepreneurs who are asking for new investors and looking for that. So placing it on this platform provides them with an opportunity to rotate through different entrepreneurs faster in order to have more people seen on this dashboard without always having to do it through an email software. And lastly, it also just provides a way to share news. So whether that's Ecotech news, that's market news, or that's international news, this just provides a way for all of the information that we normally send out in emails or normally just have sitting on our website, and it puts it in front of our members so that they can see it and they can see the success of this. And they can see all the current offerings for them in order to effectively do this. So one example here is that we have John Limon, and he is an entrepreneur in the waste management sector. Now what's important here is that he is really interested in going abroad, and he can see clean tech trends from internationally. And while this one is specifically to solar usage, I understand that Sean may be looking for other stats and other things that he can also find on this dashboard, as well as finding international news pertaining to him. Just through clicking through the different parts of the dashboard, he'll be able to see different items to effectively have a stronger presence in the market, but also be able to interact with those on the dashboard and learn more about the waste management sector through our company. So ultimately, this dashboard provides a streamlined and efficient way for us to interact with our members in order to ensure proper interaction and a well-efficient transfer of knowledge between everyone within the organization. And so again, we're looking at where Ecotech lies in the next prong. And so we see again that Ecotech is in this middle level and that they are important in ensuring the transfer of knowledge between that upper and lower levels of the clean tech sector. And so as a broker and association, we want to make sure that they're showing this spread of knowledge, which then led to the question that was posed to us when talking with Elise from the company. And she said that amongst companies, there aren't strong connections within our cluster. But in order to ensure a strong cluster, we need to ensure strong connections, which led to the challenge of how to create better linkages among the customers within the cluster. So we developed a few informal ways that some things that Ecotech can easily implement to ensure the success of this. The first of which being is this informal happy hour, forming casual relationships over a beer to talk about the success and talk about just different upcoming trends within the green market. These informal happy hours are easy and just require us to inform our member bases that we're just gonna have a day to hang out and talk about green technology. Whether that's meeting someone outside of your sector or meeting someone within your sector to talk about upcoming trends and upcoming news, it's an important way to just build sector management or build out-of-sector relationships. The next prong is looking at community lunches. Now this is something that's really interesting because it provides people within certain or specific demographics to meet those who have similar interests and characteristics as them. So these weekly, not necessarily weekly, these community lunches provide a way to create opportunity for those with similar characteristics to interact. So whether this is a women's entrepreneurship luncheon or a millennial startup luncheon, it just is connecting those with similar interests in a lunch space to continue talking about that clean tech sector in order for them to share stories and share interactions and share opportunities for them. We believe that this is important because firstly, it's feasible. These are two small things that just require us to send out information and provide a space for them to do it. So providing a space and providing an ability for them to share a beer, provide a place for them to come and meet for lunch is a great way for them to ensure stronger connections, both in their sector and out of their sector. In addition to that, this has been done before and it's proven to be effective. In the green drink study, we saw that in a country such as Malta, when they posed the idea of let's gather around and talk about green technology with a beer, they saw over 350 people arrive at their first meeting. People are excited to talk about this and they want to continue building up this informal awareness and just talk about the thing that we're all passionate about, which is that green technology. And so the success of this was important in showing that informal meetings and informal networking is important and can be effective.
Excellent. So now we're going to be moving into the international business part of our strategy, in which we saw that Ecotech members are facing three main difficulties when expanding internationally. These three difficulties are cultural difficulty, administrative difficulty, and liability of newness. Now, before we go into the strategies that we created in order to solve these difficulties, we're actually going to talk about an opportunity that's already in front of them that's helping address cultural difficulty. And that is the International Clean Tech Network, for which we know that Dennis is the chair of the board. Now, the International Clean Tech Network can actually be leveraged to alleviate cultural differences. And the reason for this is because the ICN helps bring together clean tech clusters and create synergies between companies, research centers, and local authorities. So something that Ecotech was able to create in partnership with the ICN is the ICN Passport, where membership includes temporary office space abroad, as well as strategic linking of relevant organizations. This is important because it allows members to have foreign cluster associations and guide them into their expansion. Now, going into the strategies that we implemented in order to solve these problems, the first one addresses cultural difficulty and administrative difficulty. So here, I would like to introduce to you our Market Match platform that is going to promote smart internationalization. The Market Match platform is going to promote smart internationalization through three different topics that are addressed in surveys given to our members. These topics are cultural match, administrative match, and product match. And under each of these, you can see the topics that are going to be addressed in the survey to make sure that they're the right match. This is going to measure the cultural and administrative fit to members in international markets, as well as mitigate difficulties early in the expansion lifecycle so that they know which market they go into before having to spend heavily inside of it. Now, to give you an example of how the Market Match platform is going to look and how it's going to ensure they can benefit from internationalization, here's an example of the survey and the type of questions they would be asked, such as which sector they're active in, what level of funding their company has had, or what they believe would ensure success within their industry. After answering all these questions, they would identify their strengths and weaknesses within each of these sections and then let them know to what extent they matched with different countries based off of these three sections. Now, obviously, knowing which country you match with is not enough, and they would be interested in knowing more information on exactly what it is they are matching on, or what it is that they can do to be the most successful. For this reason, within Market Match, we are also going to be providing a resource hub to promote knowledge of these foreign markets. This is going to be from a top-down approach, coming from a top-level view of economic and political climates through reports by the OECD, followed by industry reports by IBIS World, and then finally by also continuing to provide them with clean tech trends and developments, which we have provided them in the past, now incorporating it into this. Now, something that I would like to mention with Market Match is that this is something that is included on the dashboard that Sarah previously mentioned. Finally, the last difficulty that we're looking to address for our members that are expanding internationally is the liability of newness. And the way that we are doing this is through an endorsement program that's going to create trust and confidence in our member firms abroad. Now, this is again going to be done in conjunction with the ICN Association, which can hopefully associations around the world where we are going to be asking them if they can endorse international member firms. And then if these other associations are able to endorse our firms in markets where they are well known, this is going to create trust for Ecotech members abroad, thus mitigating the liability of newness. In addition, something that's extremely important for this is that this is also helping attract foreign firms to Quebec, as we would also be willing to endorse firms coming from abroad. This way, this is not only solving the key question of driving maximum benefit from internationalization and managing difficulties encountered, but it is also attracting new clean tech businesses and investors to Quebec, which is one of the main goals. Now we're going to move into the expand part of the strategy.
So when looking at expand, we're looking at specifically what ecotech can do to expand and enhance on to expand its current offerings to provide new opportunities for entrepreneurs and SMEs within the market. So as I said earlier, there were three main challenges facing entrepreneurs. The lack of end users or buyers within the market, the government having a low policy and promotion for entrepreneurs, and in addition, the lack of funding opportunities for companies. However, very recently, funding has become less critical of a problem because of the recent implementation of EcoFuel. Because of the $45 million investment provided by the government and Cycle Capital Management, we are able to see entrepreneurs receive this funding in a new way. Now, this is important because it fills in that missing gap within the area. And so we're going to begin looking at the two other areas. As we pointed out, SMEs are currently facing a weak market demand within Quebec. Bureaucracy has been said to waste time and cause a lot of stress among SMEs who want to grow but are facing a problem reaching that area. In addition to that, business property taxes are extremely high for entrepreneurs, being 4 times higher to own a business property than to own a private land for yourself. This causes a lot of negativity and causes a lot of harsh feedback for the entrepreneurs who want to start a business within Quebec. And so we believe through a creation of a lab to launch event, in addition to that, a co-creation policy model will be important in helping these entrepreneurs and ultimately helping reach that common goal of making Quebec the center for this cluster. So what is Lab to Launch? Well, Lab to Launch is a new innovative festival where clean tech entrepreneurs can present their current research and current findings to those in the community. Now, this would be simply having booths with entrepreneurs showcasing their new research, their new technologies, and their new products that they are offering. This will be important because it's an opportunity for them to engage with investors who come to this event, but also to engage with the community members. Again, we're looking to build those stronger connections within this community, and we believe having an event like this where you can meet with the people starting these projects and doing this one-on-one will be really important in building up those connections to ensure success. And at the end of this festival, those attendees who attended the event will be able to vote on which entrepreneurship project or which new startup they think is the most interesting and effective and beneficial to Quebec. And that winning entrepreneurship or that winning idea will be able to receive a cash fund at the end of the festival. This will be an important way, again, to build that community and make them a part of this clean tech cluster in order to ensure that we are seeing Quebec grow on the international scale as we get more people involved in it. So again, why is this important? Well, it's new interactions with a wider variety of stakeholders. Green technology is not anything new, and it's something that, again, we're all passionate about, and this puts it more on the center stage and a center focus within Quebec. In addition to that, it provides an ability to present those products to more end users as they too would want to come to this event to see different product offerings in one specific area instead of having to seek them out themselves. And lastly, it's a way to showcase importance to the community members about what clean tech is and what ecotech is, and provide them a way to see the new opportunities within this clean tech area as they become more involved.
Great. So over our research, one of the things that we saw over and over again that was a problem with the entrepreneurship overall in Quebec was the biggest problem typically being funding, and the second problem being that they believed that the government was not cooperating enough and creating an environment for them to grow. This is clear as the city of Montreal has been ranked the least entrepreneurial urban center in the country. However, Ecotech is in an opportunistic and strategic position where they've frequently been asked to participate as public consultants prior to the development of public policies in the past. More specifically, they have been involved previously in an advisory committee led by the Minister for Foreign Small to Medium Enterprises. And this is something that through which we've decided we can create a, yes, thank you. Implement a plan for policy co-creation. Now let me show you how this is going to work. So first, we have to understand what message it is that we are trying to get across and to what audience it is that we are trying to get it across to. So the message, which will be communicated most likely by Dennis Leclerc and Elise Laferrier, would be communicated on behalf of Ecotech's members, which are these entrepreneurs trying to see changes in public policy. So the message would be what changes in policy Ecotech is seeking, the importance of these new policies to the entrepreneur ecosystem to Quebec, in addition to the success of similar policies in other markets so that the government can be pushed to do this. Our audience for this would be most likely be Lise Thériault, which is the Minister of Small to Medium Enterprises and Regional Economic Development. By reaching out to her and creating that connection, we can also touch the other 27 members of Quebec's cabinet and hopefully engage in policy co-creation with them. Now, to give an example of the policies that can be influenced, because I'm sure you're curious, there's a couple examples are the government's scientific research and experimental development. Now, this is a fund where the government actually gives money to entrepreneurs, but one of the big issues is that they're not given cash until 18 months after that they've been approved. So one of the things that we can be doing right now is actually lessening those 18 months to a shorter time period to help entrepreneurs have cash on hand faster. Another thing that can be addressed or influenced is, again, what Sarah mentioned previously, that business property taxes are 4 times that of residential buildings, and that is not allowing for the proper creation of new businesses in Montreal. Now, to show the success of a similar policy in Denmark, to demonstrate that it can be done here in Quebec, in Denmark, the government prioritized developing regulatory frameworks that encourage new businesses. And though this did not happen in a day or even a year, over time, Denmark became the #1 country in Europe for entrepreneurship. So overall, the growth of new ventures is going to allow us to fill in the gaps in current clean tech value chains. Now, finally, I just want to demonstrate to you the synergies and outcomes of each of these strategies and give you a quick overview. So by using new dashboards and communication software, we're going to have greater cluster links, and Victoria is actually going to have more time to focus on future strategic goals rather than having to keep up with each of these member firms. In addition, through our strategy of aiding an internationalization of current members through Market Match, we're actually going to be fostering growth in Montreal from reciprocating cluster associations that are going to be sending their businesses our way. Finally, by implementing our lab to launch and our policy co-creation, we are creating a supply and demand for clean tech entrepreneurs in Quebec. So, looking towards the future, the strategy outline is going to put Ecotech's cluster in a world-leading position. As told to us by a company representative, Ecotech is reactionary to changes in the cluster and does not decide exactly what subsectors are the ones that are going to dominate the local and global landscape. However, through the implementation of the aforementioned strategies, Ecotech is positioning Montreal clean tech startup in such a place where they can thrive. Now, to give a little bit of an example of this, of some of these subsectors that can be placed to thrive through this strategy, we have waste management and artificial intelligence. Before our 2 strategies, they already had a lot of expertise, corporate research and development, university research, and government support. However, what they did not have is the ability to scale this because of the lack of talent and investors in the city. So by having the attraction of new businesses and investors, it's going to allow not only waste management and artificial intelligence, as well as other clean tech subsectors within the city and the province to achieve the scale necessary to make Ecotech's cluster a global leader.
So again, to recap what has been said here today, we believe through our 2-pronged strategy of enhancing and expanding, Ecotech will be able to create those stronger connections within their cluster and within their members in order to ensure cluster growth and help create that image of a strong clean tech area internationally within the city of Quebec. It's important to note that Ecotech is doing great and they are reaching these higher levels, but we believe that through these small implementation items of having informal meetings and just providing more resources to our members, Ecotech will be able to expand in order to ensure that others see this area. We would now like to open up the floor to any questions you guys may have about our strategy.
So thank you very much. So I have several questions. Well, about the CRM right now, it's a very good idea, and we strongly recommend actually. However, one of the barriers to have one is that it takes a lot of time to actually put the stuff in it for it to be relevant. We don't have the time right now, and our members, the SMEs, neither. We have trouble just to make them fulfill a one-pager form, and so how do you see it work?
So I think the CRM model will become very important when we have those new members start arriving. So we know that when they do apply to be a member of the firm, they have to fill out that form, and from there we can place them with what they need. And I think providing continuous check-ins and not necessarily updating them with what Ecotech is, but instead asking them what Ecotech can do for them, will be able to effectively engage them more. I think showing them just what's happening with Ecotech, they are more likely to just pass things by. But using this dashboard, they'll be able to personalize their dashboard to see what specifically they want. So if they're interested in going international, like Mateo was saying, they can have that market match sector on their dashboard. And so that'll draw them more to use the services. And that way we can see what they're in demand for, and we'll be able to engage with them more. I hope that was able to.
Well, just on the same point, same question with the market match, because so clean tech is very diverse. It's about innovation, so it doesn't fill in any of the category that we can usually find on any of the index that you can find to do the proper analysis. So who's gonna help us with this?
So a big part of the CRM model and the market match is that initial time investment to put that information into the system is definitely something that would require your time. But over the long term, it's saving you that time to go in and personally match those companies, to go in and have to pull people from that Excel file and make those connections yourself. Instead, it would be doing it for you. So that initial time investment is definitely something that you would have to invest in and see as worth it. But as for the long term, it's definitely something that could save you time for the future and help you shift your efforts towards more important
Don't
activities.
you think that the regulations will change and change and change? And if you have like 150 countries in the database, then it's every day that you need to adapt your system, you know?
Right. So since one of the problems right now is just scalability in general, and that there's only 150 members, it might not be viable in the short term. However, in the long term, we do believe that it's extremely important for the scalability of Ecotech as a whole. So at one point, they might have to make that initial investment. Now, of course, something that we don't want to do is have to onboard a lot of new employees. In fact, we want to onboard as few employees as possible while getting more members. So a lot of the times where this information will be coming from will be from outside sources. So for example, in the example of the reports, you see that the OECD is providing the political climate, as well as the IBIS World providing industry reports. So in terms of how these countries are changing, this might not have to be updated every day. It can, we can let them know that it's not updated constantly. A lot of the papers that you typically find are, within a year of the date, and then they can be updated on an annual basis. Yes.
Yeah, still somebody has to do the job. I mean, like the thing is, at the moment, they're like working full time and they don't have anybody to do it. So basically, how concretely would you put the data that are in the Excel files into your CRM and database? I know that you have to invest in, but does it mean that you have to like invest in people? Do you externalize it? And if you need money to do it, where do you find the money? I know it's really specific question, but that's the type of question that they will have to answer.
Great. So from our understanding, you kind of gather that information yourself and then diffuse that information to your members. And so what this would be doing was you could put this information that you're gathering yourself into one place, and then this system could diffuse it to your members, the relevant members, the customizable members, and be more effective because it's reaching the people that it really needs to reach. So yes, it would be needed to be updated, but as we talked about in our advisory sessions, you are constantly getting that new information and diffusing that to your members. So instead, you would be putting that information into your software, into your system, that could then diffuse it for you and go straight to those end customers that would be receiving the biggest benefit from it.
Now, to answer that question in the sense of human resources, because it is true that you probably would need another employee in order to do this, this would come at some sort of budget where you do need to have a new employee to take care of it. But one way that we believe that this can possibly be mitigated is by looking at our most important strategic partners, such as the biggest member firms that are part of our part of our cluster association, and essentially asking them if they would be willing to fund that through some sort of funding, because it would be extremely helpful to them as well. And if we can hopefully amass a certain sum, then decide to go through with the project. However, obviously, while there is not the funding to do it, we would not be able to go through it, but we find it to be a vital step in order to grow into the future. Yes?
We talked about time involved in doing all this. What about dollars and cents? Is it very expensive? A dashboard, market match, lab to labs must cost money to do all this, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You need the money.
Yes. So
you have to find it. I mean.
Of course, of course. So in regards to the financing, we did not put a large focus on that, simply because in the questions we were asked for strategic recommendations as well as action steps. However, we do believe that, again, through certain things, so just as an example, the lab to launch event, you can see that as that becoming something very expensive. We did plan on, if you were to launch an event such as that, you would have certain sponsorship tiers, such as gold, silver, and bronze sponsors, where member firms can sponsor the event, get their name out, and then actually be paying for the event so that we wouldn't have to. Yes.
What about dashboard and market match?
So looking at dashboard specifically, there are multiple companies right now that exist. Do you remember?
I remember it's like NIA, but I don't remember.
Yeah, it's out in Norway. They currently have a dashboard as well. It's called NIA or NAI, where a dashboard was helped created by companies who want to help expand nonprofits, especially within this tech sector. So NIA was specifically able to affect entrepreneurs as a whole within Norway, where they were able to create this matchmaking software. While it's for entrepreneurs to find investors, we saw a similar thing, or a similar opportunity here in Quebec to help those find matches abroad. And so that's where we saw that opportunity, was to work with that specific company who worked with them and ask them to help fund this model and help us create this dashboard from their pro bono sense.
But like you say, it's not the first thing to do, it's strategy for later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is a good one, actually.
Ecotech strategy is to make this cluster a leading one in the world, right? Based on what you recommend, what would make it unique somehow and blossoming?
Yes. So currently in Quebec, and more specifically in Montreal, there are a lot of very specific special opportunities that can only be found within Montreal. So an example of that, for example, is with artificial intelligence, and the fact that Microsoft is headquartering their AI here, and every single stakeholder around it is getting involved. I know that the government recently put in about $100 million into AI. I actually have an appendix slide if you'd like to pull that up. The government's getting involved, universities are getting involved, and then the companies are getting involved with the government and the universities in order to basically make Montreal a hub for artificial intelligence. So by having a couple of these subsectors really grow and become the world leaders or market leaders in these things, it's going to allow then the cluster to be known or have a world presence based off of these. So yeah, if you just like more of an example, here you can see that Microsoft put $6 million behind the University of Montreal, as well as $1 million for McGill, and that there's just a lot going on in terms of artificial intelligence. And then we have a similar slide demonstrating how Montreal is opportunistically situated in order to succeed in waste management.
Okay.
So I have like a bit of trouble to see the link between clean tech and artificial intelligence. Like, can you explain it a bit more? Like, is it related, or is it just an example on how like the clean tech should do to gather like?
A big part of the case that we identified was just seeing key opportunities and growth markets for the future in Montreal. And we see that Montreal has a lot coming, it has a lot of new opportunities that might potentially place them on the world stage in the future. And if we are here in this market and we have a big presence here and we can grow here as much as possible now, we are better placed for the future and placed to be a world leader in the future, given the tools to be there.
So looking at artificial intelligence in general, and I guess clean tech, one of the main goals of clean tech obviously is to use less resources and be more productive. And AI is one of the things that is allowing for productivity to rise, such as in cars and in other sorts of technology, making them more efficient, effectively becoming part of clean tech's mission.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
No,
Yep.
artificial intelligence certainly applies to everything, but in particular to waste management.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Already.
Question about the lab to launch. I got the impression that it's really to help new companies to arise. However, the big problem in our sector right now is to help the existing company to commercialize their innovation. So how do you see that why should I spend my first dollar in lab to launch, whereas I could spend it really targeting an application market and the good end users and do this strong relationships between the two?
Right. So we couldn't go like as in depth as we wanted about the Lab to Launch event. However, the Lab to Launch event would kind of have two umbrellas. One would be these startups, these new businesses that really need just that exposure. And then on the other side, there would be that kind of category for SMEs to come in. And we identified that a big gap they have is the funding for demonstrations and how expensive that can be for them. So if we have one place where one event, one festival, where all of the SMEs and all of the startups can come and show what they're doing and demonstrate in one place where they can all see what this knowledge is, what's going on in the industry, it really is achieving that knowledge transfer as well as achieving funding for the SMEs and the startups at the same time.
Lab to Launch is somewhere where all of our stakeholders can actually come together and meet under one roof. So essentially, Lab to Launch would not only be inviting a lot of these end users to be so that they can, get excited about new technologies and hopefully create some demand for these products. But in addition, we would hope that a lot of angel investors and other maybe even VC firms could set up a shop at the place and be looking at all these new things, possibly providing that funding to create these concepts into something that can be commercialized.
And do you think that we have enough companies today to launch something like this, because it exists in San Francisco, for example,
Mhm.
in some other places? Today, maybe in Montreal, we don't have the volume. What do you think?
So a big case study that we looked at was actually from Jacksonville, Florida, which is a market size much smaller than here. And in their first year, they saw extreme success. They saw over 300,000 attendees come out. And just looking at it from that perspective, amalgamating that to the population size here in Montreal, which is larger, we do see that, potentially that it could be transferred here, which is a bigger market.
Well, we already mentioned that Ecotex is pretty thin in resources, right? And there are other tasks also that Ecotech has to keep doing, not just the ones you mentioned here. For instance, lobbying. Lobbying takes a lot of time, lots of energy, and so on. You did not mention it. Are you suggesting that they should perhaps decrease their efforts in that dimension, or?
No, I would not say that we're particularly saying that they should decrease their efforts in lobbying. In fact, we talked about that policy co-creation model.
Mm-hmm.
However, I suppose that the people that would be in charge of that, again, we are looking, the way that Ecotech has been able to run so thin the entire time is by having all of these partners that have been so helpful. So again, by partnering with people that are willing to sponsor this event, they can sponsor in different ways, not only monetarily, but also by helping us organize it, possibly people that have had this experience in the past. Now, essentially, what Ecotech would be doing is getting a ton of branding, a lot of exposure, and really being the ones that are holding all of these different parts under one house, but they would not be exactly the ones organizing the entire event on their own.
Creating the net.
Yeah, just have a question. You said for the startup that since there's a cycle capsule that just came in, basically it solved the problem.
No, for the funding?
Yeah, yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's because you just keep this problem.
Right.
Just saying, okay, there's cycle capital, so we're not gonna focus on that, which is alright. But I mean, it's kind of a big problem also in the clean tech sector that there's not enough LD ventures capital doing some stuff. So I know you didn't mention it in the presentation, but maybe do you have some kind of idea of how Eco-Montreal, Ecotech, sorry, could just get more money?
Yeah. yeah, we definitely didn't mean it to come across that way. We just saw that as something that was coming up and something that was going to, kind of change the landscape of that a bit. So it's definitely a big opportunity coming. So we didn't mean for it to come across that way. However, the other programs that we're suggesting you implement with Lab to Launch and the policy co-creation, and the things with Enhance, these ideally would bring in the interest and the money that investors could bring in. So, if venture capitalists or if angel investors come into the Lab to Launch event, there's funding that could be provided there. If we're successful with policy co-creation, there's funding or there's more favorable policies that could be provided there. So we kind of saw the funding as being intertwined in each of these, as opposed to focusing directly on funding.
And sorry, to add on to that as well, especially with Lab to Launch, there's a great opportunity there to continue placing Quebec on that, or placing Montreal on this international clean tech cluster scale. Especially being angel investors, they're looking elsewhere for clean tech opportunities. But again, if we provided them a showcase where we're putting these entrepreneurs and these SMEs directly in front of them, where they can now meet them and interact with them and see the different clean tech startups and the different opportunities here within Quebec, they'll start moving here because now they see this opportunity.
Just a comment here. So you demonstrate quite easily if it's like Apple who wants to demonstrate a new iPhone, right? And it's not that expensive to demonstrate a new iPhone. You just have to build one and showcase it in a Lab2Launch kiosk or something. So now my members, what they have is a water treatment facility.
Yeah.
So the demonstration itself costs a lot of money. This is where the funding lacks. So that's why this is at some point not entirely understood, in my opinion.
I have something to add to this. It's great presentation. The ideas are great, but I would have appreciated a price on it. A range maybe. So we could plan. Let's say it's 10 million, forget it. 10,000 would be a good plan. You see, that's something I'm missing personally. But the rest, I like the ideas. I'm not ecotech, but I use them.
And really, it's super difficult to understand clean tech investors, and so it's very good ideas, and we want to implement some of them tomorrow. But yeah, the demonstration part is hard, and it's not quite the same, but we're not talking about the same.
Right.
And one last question, what should we, let's say, so what should we do first? Because you propose a lot of solutions, but do you have a schedule or?
Absolutely, yeah. So we actually created an implementation timeline, which will be coming up in just a second. And we actually have our action steps, which are the first 3 things that we would be doing, essentially when you get into the office tomorrow. So the first 3 that we decided that were going to be the most important are going to be reaching out to a platform developer in order to be able to see, the pricing and the viability of creating a dashboard, and if not, essentially knowing how much it's going to cost and what kind of funding we need, so that we can then reach out to strategic partners and gauge interest on how important this would be to them and if they'd be willing to fund it. The second would be to contact the ICN about the endorsement program and see if we can get these other cluster associations to come together with us and be willing to have this partnership, where we're essentially helping each of us with our members coming to our respective cities and countries. And finally, it would be to create a list of policies that should be targeted in this co-creation model so that we can get that started, because legislation is typically very slow in the government. There is a lot of bureaucracy, and we want to be able to ramp up entrepreneurship as soon as possible. Then below, you'll simply see exactly when we're planning on starting these initiatives. And when an arrow ends, it typically means that there's some sort of reevaluation to make sure that the project is working.
Do we still have to? Sometimes
We need to be like,
Thanks. Thanks a lot.
just when you did it,
Question period for the judges, and so it's over for.
it's here tomorrow.
Oh yeah. Save your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Good questions.